So Stephanie, thanks for joining us today at Adapt's CIO Edge. And today's theme is prioritisation and the enablement value of technology. What does that theme mean to you?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm very appreciative to have this chat. I would say it's a big part of my role and certainly my day-to-day. I always say that what's interesting about the CIO role is that we have the opportunity to be the glue and play that really objective role. So when we think about prioritisation, thinking about how do we pull the entire organisation together to do that and make sure that we're really achieving key business outcomes so that we're not, building tech for tech's sake, but at the end of the day, how are we cohesively thinking about what's next for the organisation, forward thinking, future facing, as well as, okay, what are some of the nuts and bolts as well, of course, that we need to work through. So really a, holistic process.
Being the glue for the organisation, not only for what we need today, but also building that future-ready business sounds like a key part of how to prioritise. And thinking about how you prioritise spend, particularly in the context of the lifetime cost to value outcomes. Can you share some of your principles that have helped you drive some of that progress?
Yeah. A lot of what if you put, compliance requirements, legislation aside, oftentimes we need to make that assessment of that total cost of ownership, right, of the ecosystem that we're building. The other way I often think of it, especially in customer-facing type organisations, is what is that cost to serve our people, and how do we make sure that, so that the end consumer is able to have, let's say, a lower price product, what are those efficiencies that we're going to put into our business to enable that? The impetus to cloud transformation is obviously a key driver in helping us to modernise, reduce our costs, reduce that, cost to serve as well. So in a way, it's still very customer-driven, customer-focused, and then, playing that back to, okay, as an organisation, as a business, how are we more efficient, how are we more effective in that?
Absolutely, and I think when I hear you talking about that cost to serve, it also then relates to that value of experience, convenience, having things that are personalised to what my needs as a customer are, but also as an employee of the organisation, being empowered, being able to change the operating model, simplifying processes.
Yeah.
And part of that is being able to do the right things at the right time. And what we're hearing from CIOs is that the list of things to do, it's not getting any shorter.
Yeah.
And the resources aren't necessarily there, particularly with the talent shortage and the cost of money as well. And when you think about how you drive better prioritisation, who are some of your advocates in the organisation, and how do you approach improving those conversations?
Yeah. So at the moment, because I think it evolves over time, but I would say currently, aside from definitely your CEO is a vital partner, and the CFO, the HR head is really critical, especially in this day and age, I would say. The partnership that's required there to be able to bring about organisational change to improve the employee experience is really critical. I would say it really anchors at the minute around those key roles, and then depending on where you are in the organisation or what's happening economically, any of those marketing type roles and so on, experience office types of roles, of course, are vital as well.
No, absolutely, and so, as the glue in the organisation, as the CEO's business partner, as an advocate for change with the HR leader, the finance leader, and these different business unit leaders as well, it all seems to come down to how we improve our digital services delivery. So connecting up offers with APIs, automating the way that things are delivered, but also changing the way of operating in a way that's simpler and less risky, to deliver better outcomes as well. But what we hear is that organisations on average have only digitised maybe 48% of their operational workflows. What are some of the challenges there, and how can we overcome them?
Yeah. I would say one of the biggest challenges is organisational culture. Especially in many large global businesses, they've been operating the same way very effectively for a really long time. I often say that successful businesses are even harder. So that culture piece, I think, is a big driver and can be a big barrier as well. It impacts behaviours, it impacts our ways of working, and so oftentimes you've got to strip it back and say, at the end of the day, the technology implementation can often be the easy part. It's the people in the process side of things that takes the heavy lift, takes more effort, that you need to get right, first, foundationally, before even the technology implementation part can come along. So, really understanding ways of working, understanding business processes, understanding the values of the business and how we work is really critical to, solving some of those barriers.
Absolutely. So what's the outcome? Where are we going? And then having those cultural battles, that those tears then turn to joy as you're improving the experience of your other leaders, your people, but ultimately your customers as well.
Yeah.
And as we try to evolve that culture, how important is it to be working for a purpose and values-driven organisation?
Yeah, I say it's 100%, 110% important. Oftentimes in that IT role, you're thinking about people's pet projects or who's shouting at you the loudest and those sorts of factors. And you've got to, remove all that noise and go, it has to come back to purpose. It has to come back to your classic, why are we doing this? Being really clear, are there measurable outcomes that we're really trying to get to? Is this going to make the difference to an employee's everyday life? Is this going to make a difference to a customer's everyday life? If it doesn't, why are we doing it? It goes back to don't build tech for tech's sake. There'd be no point otherwise.
Absolutely. And so the nuts and bolts get improved if the operating assembly line is streamlined, but ultimately the process and culture around driving those changes is a shared action and prioritisation across the C-suite as well.
Yeah.
And if you were going to leave one thought with the ADAPT community, what would it be?
It would be partner really well across the organisation. It's a unique position to be in that role, and make sure that you understand the business deeply, understand the challenges, understand the needs, but also make sure that as much as we're all about good delivery, how can you be future facing? How can you be that strategic advisor into your organisation? Because that's really pivotal as well.